Good morning, beloveds. It's been a week. We got hit pretty much directly by a Cat 1 hurricane. And we've been hit by a Cat 4, and yet this one now the Cat 4 was 16 years ago. I forget what Harvey was, but Harvey was just rain. You didn't have the wind, and Burl, yeah. Well, so, I sat in the dark in my house for 6 days. And the good thing, the Buddhist mindset of expectations, not having expectations, really helped a lot. That I don't know, something in the back of my head said it's going to be Saturday, and because we didn't have power, we could catch one of the news stations on the iPad, and both of I had the ability to charge 2 USB devices in my car, and my partner had the ability to charge one in his car. So, and I tell you, I spent more time in my car this last week charging devices and sitting in the air conditioning than I spend in my car in a month, so that was weird. Fortunately, we had 2 little USB fans. I had a little USB fan, and then my husband was able to pick up one more. Because our battery operated fan, 1, we found it, and 2, it took 8 batteries. Yeah. So we're going to look into this whole battery operated fans again soon, but in a minute. And interestingly enough, I have found I'm out of the habit of flipping on light switches. Like, I'm walking around in my house this morning. I have power, obviously, but I'm not flipping on the lights. I don't know. It's weird. And I'm grateful because it's July and I live in South Texas. I'm grateful that the house never got a bit above 85 degrees. It was not comfortable, but it wasn't unbearable. And then just between the 2 little USB fans, and I've worked at the Renaissance Festival for over 20 years. I have a couple of bamboo fans. Cause I didn't realize how much I love my ceiling fans. My ceiling fans run year round pretty much. So it's been an experience, and my job didn't have power, so I basically hung with my cats for a week, which is good because, we had our windows open and all that. My partner's job never lost power. So he worked this week, and the good thing is he was able to bring home ice from his job. So we had a small cooler, and that helped. The little things. It's the little things. So, all right, I guess I needed to talk about my experiences a little bit. So, you can skip past this. It's, when I put the glasses on that I'm about to do the reading. So, unfortunately, we were about to start a new chapter. So, I was like, I didn't leave you hanging in the middle of a chapter. So, it is July 14th. We are starting on chapter 21. The title of the chapter is Some Phases of the Subjective Life. And I'll remind you that we are in part 4 of the Science of Mind, and this is the perfect whole. So the indivisible whole within which are all of its parts. So, all right. And I looked at it, and it's going to take two parts. So I'm going to give you half of it now and half of it tomorrow. So, which hopefully my job will have power so I can go back to work. All right, so we are starting on page 347 with the subjective mind. We have already seen that what we call the soul is really the subjective part of us. We wish to look a little further into some of the phenomena of the soul. We do not have two minds, but we do have a dual aspect of mentality in what we call the objective and subjective states of consciousness. The objective mind is that part of the mentality which functions consciously. It is the part of us which is self-knowing, and without it, we could not be self-conscious entities. Our conscious mind is the place where we consciously live and are aware that we are living. This is spirit. Our subjective mind is our mental emanation in the universal subjectivity. It is our individual use of mental law. We certainly do not wish to deviate from that which psychology teaches about the mind of people in its conscious, subconscious, or subjective states. We merely wish to add this, and this is in italics, so it's obviously important. The reason we have a subjective mind is that subjectivity existed in the universe prior to our use of it, and where we use it, it forms around us a subjective personification of ourselves, which is a result of the action and the reaction of our thought. Yeah, that is kind of important. The subjective mind is the seat of memory and contains a remembrance of everything that has ever happened to the outer person. It also contains the family and race characteristics. It retains these memories in a certain sense as mental pictures. The subjective mind might be compared to a picture gallery upon whose walls are hung the pictures of all of the people whom the individual has ever known and all of the incidents which they have ever experienced. All right, this next section is titled Race Suggestion. Race suggestion is a very real thing, and each individual carries around with them and has written into their mentality many impressions which they never consciously thought of or experienced. When we realize that the individual's subjectivity is their use of the one subjective mind, we shall see that a subjective unity is maintained between all people, and that individual mentalities who are in sympathetic vibration with each other more or less mingle and receive suggestions from each other. This is the meaning of mental influence, which is a very real thing. And on a side note, if you look up communication, like verbal communication only accounts for like 7% of communication. Like over 50% of our communication is nonverbal. Body language. I forget what the rest of the breakdown is, but it's an interesting fact. Google it. Okay, back to the reading. Just as each person, place, or thing has a subjective atmosphere or remembrance, so each town, city, or nation has its individual atmosphere. Some towns are bustling with life and action, while some seem dead. Some are filled with the spirit of culture, while others are filled with the spirit of commerce. This is the result of the mentalities of those who live in such places. Just as a city has its atmosphere, so does an entire nation. The combined thought of those who inhabit a nation creates a national consciousness, which we speak of as the psychology of that people. Just a side note here, that's one of the things where we believe that we can change the consciousness of the nation by working on our own consciousness. Like, for every clear drip of water that we put in our consciousness, it actually helps to support, the levels of consciousness going up. Or so, I guess subconscious is what we're talking about, subconscious. So, when you see interesting things happen in the world, work on your own consciousness, work on your own subconscious, continue to put good stuff in your subconscious. It's the greatest way for you personally to affect what's going on in the world. That's why we're called Science of Mind. All right, back to the reading. Subjective mind being universal, the history of the race is written in the mental atmosphere of the globe on which we live. That is, everything that has ever happened on this planet has left its imprint on the walls of time. And could we walk down their corridors and read the writings, we should be reading the race history. This should seem simple when we realize that the vibrations of the human voice can be preserved on the receptive phonograph disc or the sound film and reproduced at will. Oh my God, this was written 100 years ago. Okay. Every now and again, you have to remember that. The sound film. If we were to impress one of these discs or a strip of the sound film and lay it away for years, properly protecting it, it would still reproduce these vibrations. It is not difficult then to understand how the walls of time may be hung with the pictures of human events and how one who sees these pictures may read race history. There is a tendency on the part of all of us to reproduce the accumulated subjective experiences of the human race. Let me read that again. There is a tendency on the part of all of us to reproduce the accumulated experience of the human race, consciously or unconsciously. It is extremely important that we are conscious of what we are doing, because there are things in the human experience that we don't need to keep reproducing. It is high time that we let them move on. Okay, and that's my opinion. That is my opinion. All right, next section. Subjective mind and inspiration. Since the individual subjective mind is the storehouse of memory, it retains all that the eye has seen, the ear has heard, or the mentality conceived. Since it contains much of the outer person, hang on, let me get a drink of water. It's a hydration thing. That I know I said water and you're like, it's orange. It's a hydration thing. It's a hydration pack. Okay. All right, and now I have forgotten where I was. I think I was at the part that I was underlined. Since it contains much that the outer person never consciously knew and is the receptacle of much of the race knowledge through unconscious communication, it must and does have a knowledge that far surpasses the objective faculties. Realizing that the subjective draws to itself everything that it is in sympathy with, we see that anyone who is sympathetically inclined towards the race or vibrates to the race thought might pick up the entire race emotion and experience, and if they were able to bring it to the surface, could consciously depict it. Many of the world's orators, actors, and writers have been able to do this, which explains why some of them have been so erratic, for they have been more or less controlled by the emotions which they have contacted. Anyone contemplating the subjective side of the race mentality with the ability to bring it to the surface will have at their disposal an emotional knowledge of many lifetimes of hard study. Will have at their disposal an emotional knowledge that many lifetimes of hard study could not accumulate. But if one had to surrender their individuality in the process, they would remain ignorant. There is, of course, a much deeper seat of knowledge than the subjective mind, which is the spirit. Direct contact with the spirit is illumination. I don't know what I just read. And I'm going to let it go. Okay. Yeah. Let's go on to mental atmospheres. I think that he's talking about we have the ability to tap into the subjective mind, into that, what he's calling the race consciousness. And when we do it consciously, we can produce great things. And when we do it unconsciously, then as his word was, we can behave erratically, because we are allowing the race consciousness to run us rather than taking the information from the race consciousness and using it usefully. My opinion. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves about that particular that particular section. All right, so we're on to mental atmospheres. Each person has a mental atmosphere, which is the result of all that they have thought, said, and done, and consciously or unconsciously perceived. The mental atmosphere is very real, and it is that subtle influence which constitutes the power of personal attraction. For personal attraction has but little to do with looks. It goes much deeper and is almost entirely subjective. This will explain our likes and dislikes for those with whom we come in daily contact. We meet some only to turn away without a word, while others we are at once drawn towards and without any apparent reason. This is the result of their mental atmosphere or thought vibration. No matter what the lips may be saying, the inner thought outspeaks them, and the unspoken word often carries more weight than the spoken. All right, remember what I said about verbal and nonverbal communication. What comes out of our mouth only accounts for about 7% of our communication. So he's attributing it to our mental atmosphere. That is our nonverbal communication. We are telling people who we are through our body language, our facial expressions, and all of that. So keep that in mind. Okay. All right. I think, this is the last section I'm going to do today. So we are going to finish up on tuning in on thought. Thought transference or telepathy is such a commonly known fact that it is not our purpose to do any other than discuss it briefly. However, there are some facts which might be overlooked unless we give them careful attention. The main fact is to emphasize that mental telepathy would not be possible unless there were a medium through which it could operate. This medium is the universal mind, and it is through this medium or avenue that all thought transference or mental telepathy takes place. Telepathy is the act of reading subjective thought or receiving conscious thought from another without audible words being spoken. But there must be a mental tuning in, so to speak, just as there must be in radio. We are surrounded by all sorts of vibrations, and if we wish to catch any of them distinctly, we must tune in. Even then, there's a great deal of interference, and we do not always get the messages clearly. We often get the wrong ones, and sometimes many of the vibrations come together and seem to be nothing but a lot of noise, without any particular reason for being. It is only when the instrument is properly adjusted to some individual vibration that a clear message may be received. This is true of mental telepathy, which is the transmission of thought. The receiver must tune in. It does not follow, however, that the sender knows that this is taking place, any more than a radio speaker knows how many are tuning in to hear their address. In other words, one might pick up the thoughts just as they pick up radio messages. Some may have the ability to tune in on thought and read it more or less accurately. These people we call psychics. But all people are really psychic, since all have a soul or subjective mind. What we really mean is that a psychic or medium is one who has the ability to objectify that which is subjective, to bring to the surface of conscious thought that which lies below the threshold of the outer mind. The medium reads the book of remembrance, and it is marvelous how far-reaching this book may be. Whatever may have happened at any time on this plane remains within its subjective atmosphere as a memory picture of the experience of those who've lived here. These pictures or vibrations may be clearly discerned by those who can read them. Since the universal subjectivity is a unity, it follows that all of these pictures exist at any and every point within it. Consequently, we may contact at that point of our own subjective mind, which is a point in the universal subjective mind, every incident which has ever transpired on this planet. We might even see a picture which was enacted 2,000 years ago in some Roman arena, for the atmosphere contains such pictures. Each person in their objective state is a distinct and individual center in the universal mind, but it is in their subjective state, in their stream of consciousness, or at their rate of vibration, each is universal because of the indivisibility of mind. Wherever and whenever any individual contacts another upon the subjective side of life, if they are a psychic, if they objectify subjectivity, they may see a thought form of that person, but it does not necessarily follow that they would really be seeing the person. We need not be astonished when a psychic gives us the complete history of our family, even when reciting the things that engaged the attention of our ancestors while they were on Earth. The psychic is merely reading from the subjective remembrance. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there. We're gonna start we'll be on 352 with streams of consciousness. I am, however, going to address that section where we're just talking about psychics, because Ernest Holmes did come up in the transcendental movements. He read the transcendental poets. He also did around the time that he was growing up, there was the spiritualist movement is what I think it is, where you've heard of table knocking, and if you haven't, feel free to, Google it, where they were big into seances and things like that. And they would sit around tables, and I think another word is called table rapping. Tables would float and things like that. And yeah, there were a lot of con people out there, but there were people who had real experiences. And Ernest, leaned into that. And his argument is, well, okay, the reason why we can do that is because we are contained within the subjective mind, capital S, capital N, that people, that we are using a mind that is indivisible. It can't be divided. So we have the ability to tune into these things. I mean, honestly, he might make an argument for past life stuff for that too. It's like, it's written in the subjective mind. And every person has the ability to tune into it. Most of us don't. So every now and again, Ernest will come up with really weird stuff, and you're like, what? He is a product of his time, as we are a product of our time. So there it is. All right. So I'm going to wrap that up. We'll finish this chapter tomorrow. I'm curious to see what the rest of the chapter is after stopping there. All right, so just some basic housekeeping. We are Creative Life Spiritual Center, Creative Life Spark. I'm the running Rev Ryan on the social medias that I am on. So please, an easy way to support the center and me is to go and engage with the social media. Go like, follow, subscribe, share, do all that stuff. Comment. Please feel free to comment. So, yeah, if you're interested, if you want more information about the center, please email info@creativelife.org. That'll get you on the constant contact. And you get one email a week, unless something unusual happens. Because I think we may have gotten a couple of extra emails this week because there was a hurricane. Our area was okay. Greatly impacted. Now, you can also go to the website, creativelife.org. Okay. I am now going to, because I haven't been able to do it for a week, encourage you to have a great day, a wondrous day, a fantastic day, a magical day, an enchanted day, a wonderful day, an awesome day, an amazing day, a take care of business day, all those tasks that you couldn't do while it was no power day, a recovery day, a enjoy the ceiling fans day. In my case, I will be enjoying my ceiling fans. A cuddle with your fur babies day, because that was one of the things. Like, it's hot in the house, it's 85 degrees in the house, and the cat still wanted to sit in my lap, and I'm like, dude, you're hot. But one of my cats didn't feel good, so I was like, yeah, no, come sit in my lap. I will fan myself extra. Although, the cat that didn't feel good, objected to the bamboo fan. When I started using that, she'd get out of my lap every time. And I was just like, I'm sorry, baby. Okay. It is what it is day, a take care of yourself day, a good day. And if that is too much pressure, simply have a day. You are enough just as you are. You are a beloved expression of the divine. You are a brilliant light. You are a divine spark. You are spirit in motion. You are God in action, or as Reverend Jesse likes to call us, you're a godling. All right. So, it is Sunday. There will be a Sunday service, but because the center, because of the power outages, the Sunday service will be coming to you from Reverend Jesse's library again. So you can peruse the books on his shelf. It will be phenomenal as it always is. And we hope to be back in person next week because Reverend David will be on stage next week. All right. So I'm going to wrap this up and remind you, one, there will be the 11 a.m. service on Facebook, not in person. Reverend David should be on around 5 p.m. with you, and I'll be back with you around 9 a.m. tomorrow. Take care of yourself. Know that you are loved, and I will see you next time.